I mean, I'm tempted to ask a hypothetical question, but I'm a bit skeptical if we are going too much into the fantasy world. But I'll go ahead and try and ask it anyway. You have played against both Magnus and Gary at the peak of their powers. You know, when they were at their prime. And how do you describe your experience against both these players when they were at their best?
For Magnus, that's a more recent phenomenon. He's, for me, still, I keep saying that what I saw in 2019, just leaves me awestruck. And Gary feels remote in the sense that after the years pass, you stop feeling it. But of course, Gary was equally intense, and it was a heavy experience playing him. Many people, the way they described how playing as Gary sounds very much like how they describe playing with Magnus. But the one clear difference is Magnus is a much more universal player. Gary needed dynamic positions more. Even though he played many quiet positions excellently, he never chose them. Even so, Magnus wins a lot more dead drawn positions than anyone else, or at least at one point. And Magnus experiments much more. I don't know if this is necessary because Gary was uncomfortable at it. There was a time when these moves were considered so bad that we never looked at them and took them seriously.
Something
and
like
that was
the
a
London
mental
system?
block that was hard to break. Sorry?
Something like the London system?
For instance, and many quiet setups and all.
E4, C5, knight of
I
g,
mean, I
d6,
remember this
c3.
famous remark of Gary that when Swidler beat him in Tilburg 97 with this bishop b5 check, Gary said, well, if we have to study this, we'll get no serious work done. And now I would gently remind him that there's quite a lot of serious work here. I think they're also creatures of their time. Magnus seems to be a more complete and universal player, but on the other hand, he came at a much later state of computer development. I can't really compare the two very well. But Magnus being more universal than Gary, I think that's fairly uncontroversial.